My husband learned how to make my mother's dal recipe from memory because I mentioned it once, and I repaid that kind of love by spending 3 months lying to his face every single night at dinner. I still remember the exact second I decided to cheat on Daniel. It wasn't some dramatic, movie moment revelation. It wasn't even a conscious decision at first. It was a Tuesday night, wine in my hand, my phone lighting up with a message from Caleb, and me thinking, what's the harm in just replying? That's how it starts. That's always how it starts. You tell yourself it's nothing. You tell yourself you're just a little unhappy and a little bored and you deserve to feel something exciting for once. You don't tell yourself the truth, which is that you're about to blow up the one solid thing in your life because you couldn't sit with discomfort for 5 more minutes. Daniel and I had been together for 4 years. 4 years of building something real. He wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But he was steady. He was kind in the way that quiet people are kind, the kind that doesn't announce itself but just shows up, over and over, without asking for applause. He remembered my sister's birthday. He learned how to make my mother's dal recipe because I mentioned once, that I missed home. He worked double shifts for 8 months so we could put a down payment on an apartment that I picked out, that I decorated, that I called mine even though both our names were on the lease. He loved me in the most unglamorous, consistent way a person can love someone. And I threw it away. Not because he did something unforgivable. Not because the love was gone. I threw it away because his mother made a comment at dinner one night that rubbed me the wrong way, and instead of talking to Daniel about it like an adult, I started talking to Caleb about it instead. That's where the rot started. Not with Caleb. With his family. Daniel's family was not easy. I want to be honest about that, because I spent months using it as a justification, and even now when I try to explain what happened, that's the first place I go. His mother, Rukiah Auntie, was the kind of woman who had an opinion about everything and apologized for none of it. She thought I talked too much at family dinners. She thought I was too career-focused. She made little comments about how a home needs a woman who knows how to prioritize it, and she always said it with a smile, which somehow made it worse. His sisters followed her lead. They weren't cruel exactly, they were just cold in that particular way that women can be cold to someone they haven't fully accepted yet. Every holiday felt like a test I hadn't studied for. Every family gathering left me driving home in silence, replaying conversations, wondering what I'd done wrong. And Daniel tried. I'll give him that. He tried to smooth things over, tried to translate for me, tried to be the bridge. But he was also his mother's son, and there were things he couldn't see because he'd grown up inside them. He didn't understand why I came home from those dinners so depleted. He thought I was being too sensitive. He said, just give it time, they'll come around, and I heard, your feelings are inconvenient, please put them away. That's not what he meant. But that's what I heard. And instead of saying that to him directly, I started carrying it alone, letting it fester, letting it become a wall between us. Enter Caleb. Caleb was a colleague. We'd worked in the same office for 2 years, friendly but nothing more. Then the company restructured and we ended up on the same project team, working late nights, ordering takeout at the office, sharing the specific kind of exhausted honesty that only happens at 11 p.m. when everyone else has gone home. He listened. That's the thing I told myself. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend anyone. He just nodded and said, that sounds really hard, and something in my chest came loose every time he said it. I know now that he was just good at that. I know now that a man who is exceptionally good at listening to a woman vent about her relationship is not necessarily a good man. He's just a man who knows how to position himself. But I didn't see that then. I saw someone who made me feel understood, and I confused that feeling for something it wasn't. My friends didn't help. My 2 closest friends, Sarah and Dia, had never fully warmed to Daniel. Sarah thought he was boring. Dia thought I'd settled. They never said it outright, but it was there in the pauses, in the way they changed the subject when I talked about him, in the leading questions they asked about Caleb once they realized we were texting outside work. Sarah actually said to me once, you seem more alive when you talk about Caleb. I took that as permission. I shouldn't have. It wasn't permission. It was 2 women who loved me but loved drama slightly more, and who didn't fully understand what they were encouraging me toward. But I let them encourage me anyway, because it felt good to be seen as someone who could do better, someone who had options, someone who wasn't just quietly grateful for what she had. The first time anything physical happened with Caleb was at a work conference in another city. We'd had drinks with the team, everyone else went to bed, and we stayed at the hotel bar talking until 2 in the morning. I remember standing outside my room door, key card in hand, and him saying, I should go, and me saying, you don't have to. I said it. I want to be clear about that. I said it. Not him. Me. And the moment I did, I knew I'd crossed something. But the wine was warm in my chest and I hadn't felt wanted like that in so long, or at least that's what I told myself, and I let myself step across the line and close the door behind us both. It went on for 3 months after that. 3 months of lying. And I was so good at it, that's the part that still makes me feel sick. I was so disturbingly good at sitting across from Daniel at dinner, talking about our weekend plans, watching him be kind and steady and real, and feeling almost nothing. I had compartmentalized so thoroughly that I had two versions of myself operating at the same time, and neither one of them was fully honest. The version that was with Caleb felt alive and reckless and chosen. The version that was with Daniel felt safe and guilty and numb. I told myself I just needed to figure out which life I wanted. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone yet. Both of those things were lies. The red flags about Caleb were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. He never took me anywhere public in our own city. He talked about his ex with too much detail for someone who was over her. He would go quiet for days and then reappear like nothing had happened, and when I asked about it, he'd redirect the conversation back to me so smoothly I almost didn't notice. He never once said, "I want to be with you." He said, "I've never connected with anyone like this," and I let that be enough because I was too invested to ask for more. I was building a fantasy out of scraps and calling it a relationship. Meanwhile, Daniel's family drama was still ongoing. His mother had made a comment at a family lunch about how some women focus so much on their careers they forget what a man actually needs from a partner. She wasn't looking at me when she said it, but everyone at the table was looking at their plates, and that's how I knew it was aimed at me. I came home shaking. I didn't tell Daniel right away. I let it sit, and then that night when he was tired and distracted and didn't immediately ask me what was wrong, something snapped. We fought. A real fight, the kind where you stop being careful. And that's when it happened. That's when I lost it completely. I screamed at him. Not just raised my voice. Screamed. I told him his family had ruined everything. I told him every single problem in our relationship was because of them, because of his mother, because of the way they'd never accepted me and he'd never defended me the way I needed. I said it loud enough that our neighbors could probably hear. I said things I couldn't take back. I watched his face go through something I'd never seen on him before, not anger exactly, more like recognition, like pieces were clicking into place that he hadn't meant to put together. He was quiet for a long moment when I stopped. Then he said, very evenly, "Where is this actually coming from, Miriam?" And I didn't answer. Because I couldn't. Because the real answer would have destroyed us in a different way than I was prepared for. He found out 2 weeks later. Not from me. I didn't have the courage to tell him. He found out because Caleb's ex-girlfriend, the one he talked about too much, had apparently been watching him for months. She found me on Instagram. She sent Daniel a voice note. I don't know exactly what was on it. Daniel never told me. He just left it on the kitchen counter with a single message: "My sister is coming to pick up my things tomorrow. Please don't be home." He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He didn't throw anything or call me names or give me anything to push back against. He just left. And the silence he left behind was so complete it felt like the apartment itself had turned against me. I called him 6 times that night. He didn't pick up. I texted him everything: apologies, explanations, begging, honesty too late to mean anything. He read none of it. Or maybe he read all of it and decided it didn't deserve a response. I don't know which is worse. I sat on the floor of the apartment we had chosen together, in front of the furniture I had arranged, under the lights I had picked out, and I understood for the first time that I had not just lost a relationship. I had lost a person. I had lost a person who had never once given me a real reason to do what I did, and I had done it anyway, and now he was gone with a quietness so total it felt like I had never existed to him at all. The affair partner disappeared within a week. That's the thing nobody tells you. The person you burned your life down for, the person who made you feel so seen and alive and chosen, has a very low threshold for complicated situations. Caleb texted me once after everything came out. He said, "I think it's better if we don't talk for a while." That was it. No acknowledgement of what we built, or what he participated in, or what his role had been in any of it. Just, "I think it's better if we don't talk for a while." Like we'd had a minor disagreement. Like I hadn't thrown away 4 years of my life in the direction of what we had. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I blocked him, because what else was there to do? He had already made it clear that whatever he'd felt for me had a very convenient expiration date, which was exactly the moment things became inconvenient for him. I went to Sarah first. She was my person, the one I'd vented to for months, the one who had encouraged me to follow what I felt. I called her crying and she came over, and she was kind, but there was something different in her eyes. A careful distance. Like she was already calculating how this looked and who she wanted to be adjacent to. She said the right things. She said she was sorry, that she was there for me, that it would get better. But she stayed for exactly 90 minutes and then said she had an early morning. She did not answer when I called the following night. Or the night after. Within a month she had posted a photo with Daniel's sister. They had apparently become friends. I found out about it the way you find out about everything you were excluded from now, through someone else's story on Instagram. Dia was more direct. She called me one afternoon about 3 weeks after everything collapsed, and she said, "I love you, but I can't pretend I think you handled this right, and I can't keep being in a space where our entire friendship has been built on me helping you justify something that hurt someone who didn't deserve it." She was not wrong. Not about any of it. But that doesn't mean it didn't feel like being skinned. She wasn't cruel. She was honest. And honest, when you've been dishonest for months, lands like a punishment you asked for but weren't ready to receive. I lost my job 3 months later. Not because of the cheating directly, but because Caleb was a colleague and the fallout between us made the environment impossible. He never said anything overtly, he's too smart for that, but there's a kind of silence a person can create around you in a workplace that makes staying untenable. I handed in my resignation before they could make me uncomfortable enough to leave on worse terms. I told myself I was choosing to go. I wasn't. I was just leaving before I was pushed. I had to move back into my parents' house. I was 31 years old, carrying 2 suitcases into my childhood bedroom, looking at the walls where I'd stuck posters as a teenager, and understanding that I had actively chosen to return to this point from a life I had built. My mother didn't say anything the first night. She made chai and set it next to me and left the room. My father barely looked at me. They knew enough of the story to be disappointed in me, and they loved me enough to not say it out loud, but that silence had its own texture. Every meal felt like a trial I was quietly failing. Daniel's family, predictably, ensured his version of events was the one that circulated. His cousin posted something vague on Facebook that wasn't hard to decode if you knew the situation. His mother, Rukiah Auntie, who had spent years being cold to me, suddenly had a great deal of warmth for everyone in their social circle who reached out to offer Daniel sympathy. I became a cautionary tale in a community where cautionary tales about women stick. I'd go to the grocery store and see people who had known me for years look slightly past me, or offer me a smile that was a degree too careful, too deliberate. That smile that says I know, and also says I've already decided what I think. I kept trying to reach Daniel. I know I shouldn't have. I know every message I sent was more about my need for resolution than about any right I had to contact him. But I couldn't accept the silence. I wrote him letters I didn't send. I drafted emails I didn't send. I sent maybe 4 texts over the course of 5 months, each one more stripped down than the last, until the final one was just, "I'm sorry." I know that means nothing now. I'm sorry. He didn't reply. At some point his number no longer worked, which means he changed it, at least partly so I couldn't reach him. That was its own specific grief, realizing that someone had taken an active step to make themselves unreachable to you. We didn't have children together. I want to be clear about that because this story could be worse, and in some versions of it, it is. But we had talked about children. We had talked about names. We had a future that existed in the specific form of conversations we had late at night, plans that were real enough to have shaped how I thought about my life. When I understood that future was gone, I went through a period of grief for children who had never existed, for a version of my life that had been entirely possible and that I had made impossible with my own choices. That grief was strange and private, and I had no one to share it with because I dismantled my support system along with everything else. The shame doesn't announce itself all at once. It comes in waves, and the waves have triggers you can't always anticipate. I'd be fine, or something adjacent to fine, and then I'd see a couple being boring together, just walking through a parking lot or arguing about where to eat, and something in my chest would collapse. I'd see something Daniel would have laughed at and reach for my phone before remembering. I'd wake up from dreams where we were still together and spend the first 20 minutes of consciousness lying completely still, just feeling the distance between what my sleeping brain believed and what was actually true. I tried therapy. I want to be honest about that because it matters. I tried therapy, and my therapist was kind and competent, and she helped me understand why I had done what I did, the avoidance patterns, the external validation seeking, the way I'd used Caleb as a pressure valve instead of dealing with real issues in my relationship directly. She helped me understand it intellectually. But understanding why you did something doesn't undo it. It doesn't return phone calls. It doesn't rebuild a person's trust. It doesn't give you back Sunday mornings or the way someone's voice sounds when they're half asleep and not performing anything for anyone. Understanding is just what you do with the wreckage. It's not the same as not having created the wreckage. His family, as it turned out, had not ruined our relationship. I had. That is the thing I screamed at him in the middle of our worst fight, the accusation I made with full-throated certainty, and it was built entirely on my own need to have a villain outside myself. Was Rukiah Auntie difficult? Yes. Did Daniel sometimes fail to advocate for me in the way I needed? Yes. Were those things real problems worth addressing? Absolutely. But did any of that cause me to cheat on him? No. I did that. I made that choice, on a Tuesday night with wine in my hand and a message on my phone, and everything that followed was a consequence of that choice. The family stuff was real. And I weaponized it. I let it become my excuse, my story, my justification for something that didn't need a justification because nothing would have justified it. There is a version of my life I think about sometimes. It's not a fantasy exactly, more like an autopsy. In that version, I come home from the conference alone. I come home, and I'm still unhappy about Daniel's family, and the next day I sit him down and I say, I need you to hear me about your mother, and I need you to actually be on my side this time, and if you can't do that, I need to know, because this is affecting us in ways I don't think you can see. Maybe we would have had that fight and come out the other side of it stronger. Maybe we would have discovered we were fundamentally incompatible. Maybe it would have ended anyway. But it would have ended honestly. It would have ended with both of us intact, with my ability to look at myself in the mirror intact, with the possibility of him someday being able to think about me without feeling sick. Instead, I am here. 31 years old in my childhood bedroom, friendless in the specific way that comes from having people choose the person you hurt over you, unemployed, blocked on a phone number that no longer exists, and trying to figure out who I am without the life I dismantled. I'm not asking for sympathy. I want to be clear about that. I know what I did. I have sat with what I did every single day for months, and I will probably sit with it for years. What I'm asking, if I'm asking anything, is that you not do this. Whatever it is you're justifying right now, whatever small permission you're giving yourself, whatever message you're about to reply to, whatever hotel bar you're about to stay at too long. Whatever story you're building where you're the one who deserves more and everyone around you has failed to see it. Stop. Look at what you actually have. Look at who is actually in front of you. And if something is broken, say so out loud, to the right person, before you do something that cannot be undone. Because I thought I was just replying to a message. I thought it was just one night. I thought I still had time to figure out what I wanted before anything became permanent. It became permanent in about 4 seconds. The same 4 seconds it takes for a person to understand that the one they trusted most chose someone else. After that, nothing goes back. Not really. Not in any way that matters. I still have the key to an apartment that isn't mine anymore. I haven't been able to throw it away. That is the only honest thing I can tell you about who I am now.